How's it going, man?
Ah, fantastic, actually. Might not
Do
sound
I
like it
always
with that
start the
huff.
same way?
Uh,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we got to switch it up. I mean, I got to think of what some other podcasts do. Most of them start like this, but maybe, that podcast we listen to, the All In one, we got to come up
Yeah.
with nicknames. They've got like the Dictator and all
Oh,
this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty cool, actually. I've never
that'll
had
be
a
for next
nickname,
week.
so
No, my nicknames have always been short forms of my name, which is pretty normal, but
yeah,
I've never had like
y-
a cool one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like what was, yeah, there's like the Dictator or something there, the Rain
Yeah.
Man. Like, oh, yeah, all these things.
Some of
So
my friends call me, well, maybe this will get cut, I don't know. But some of my friends call
I don't
me
think so.
Moose. Like Hayden and a few others call me Moose
Yeah.
because I'm Italian in background and it's short form for Mussolini. So that's maybe not the best
Uh,
nickname, but when you hear Moose, it's like, oh,
it's
that's
kind of
nice. But then
cool.
when you tell the story, it's like,
You could
so
definitely spin that, just be like, oh, I'm a Canadian boy, and we have lots of moose here, and
yeah, exactly.
heck,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
No,
So
there's a positive spin on it. So yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Good. No, I'm good too. I finally got this laptop figured out, new laptop, which I
Oh yeah.
hate.
I know it's
Hate new
hilarious.
laptops.
We lease our Macs from
For it.
Apple, and so every 3 years, and this time it was 2 years because I also leased a phone. So now it's 3 years, and so every 3 years we
Okay,
get a new
good.
laptop. And Tom is very different than me, where when I get a new piece of tech, I'm like a
Yeah,
kid
you're
in
like getting
a
into
candy
it.
store. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I'm excited, trying new things, Googling all the new
man.
features. Whereas Tom is just like, why did we do this? So,
For me,
anyways.
it's like I spent like hours this weekend. I was like, okay, how do I install my apps, get in Excel and some of the other things? And then how do I turn off every single ping? I'm like a distraction. Like it's always like bing, bing, bing going off when you have a new laptop. Turn off, turn off, turn off. And then I'm finally there. And my toolbar for anyone who uses Mac, it's like this long. I have three things. It's just like it's
Wow,
the
that's pretty good.
Finder. What is it?
Browser.
Finder and two browsers because sometimes I need two browsers. So it's Finder and two browsers. That's all I have. And then that's
That's
what
really
how I
good.
spent this weekend. So it was a bit of a struggle to get through. I'm not about the new features like you are, but I'm there now, and here we are, and recording on this computer. So
It's
there you
way
go. So
lighter, bigger, bigger and lighter.
yeah,
What
what features are you talking about? We're like, oh, cool new feature. Like what should I
it's
be
mostly
using?
software based. So there wasn't anything because I had the same
Yeah,
software on the old
yeah.
Mac. But I
So
was
yeah,
wondering if there's new hand gestures and stuff like that because the trackpad on this thing is probably like 3 inches wide. It's massive.
yeah, it's
So,
math.
um,
It's got the moving
anyways, yeah,
background at least, the screensaver.
yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of cool.
that's like
Um,
not a
I
selling feature, but yeah,
yeah, I know. They had that on Windows 95, I think.
yeah.
The movie. It was like that. Remember that? Like it would be a word and it would like spin around on
Oh
the
yeah.
screen.
I like the
Yeah.
one where it would from the office
Oh
where it would
yeah.
like
Oh
go
yeah.
in the corners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it would never
Yeah.
go in the
Yeah.
corner, but yeah.
No, except that one time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, I thought today we could get into it. We want to talk to a topic that we talk about a lot, and I think we also want to spend some time today, like getting into the nitty gritty of it. I think that's something, we've heard people want, where it's like, okay, you come to us, you have all these great ideas, and I like them, but say, where do I start? What do I even do? And yeah, how do I kind of connect these pieces of, what you're saying to actually my day to day and actually getting into it? And so we want to introduce a concept, but we want to spend at least half the time talking about, okay, how do I actually do this in practice? It's like I listen to this podcast, I get excited. It's like, what am I doing? What are the exact next steps? So you want to walk you through those. So let's get right into it. And the topic I picked, and maybe we'll do some more like this if we get some good feedback. But I think a good one to start with is domains. It's something, maybe I don't know if people are listening or rolling their eyes saying, "Oh, domains, who cares? I have one of those, or my brokerage has one of those." It seems so, I guess negligible is the right word. I don't know, but so small that why are we even spending 30 minutes listening to this? But we want to convince you that A, it's worthwhile, and B, it isn't so hard to set up and set up right. And so let's start with that though. I mean, why even talk about domains? Why is this even relevant?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons. One of them I would say is like if you're running a business, I mean, we joke about this internally. maybe we shouldn't, but like when you run a business and you see someone write into your business or send you an email where it says at Gmail or at Yahoo or at Outlook or Hotmail, immediately you kind of write them off. Or at least we do a little bit where the lead
A
comes
little
in, we're
bit.
like,
Yeah.
you can't even get your own domain and you're a business. This is weird. So I mean that's one reason why. I mean the overarching reason there is if you're running a business or you're a broker or an agent, you should have something that reflects that. And so you should have your business name in some sense, and we'll talk about all of that after the at symbol. That's basically what a domain is. It's like a way to tell the internet that you own. Well, yeah, I don't even know
This
how to explain
email
that.
or this
Maybe you can help.
website.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it'd be something
yeah,
like that. It's basically kind of like your address, so to speak, or kind of
yeah,
like your license plate maybe to the internet, right? And so we'll get into that. And so yeah, for me, it's a big part of that. Okay, you want to be professional, it doesn't want to be Gmail, but you also don't want it to be your brokerage. And I'll say for two reasons. The first one is maybe a smaller one, but for me, when I get an email from a new person, I usually almost always take
yeah,
like everything after the ad symbol, take it, copy and paste it, put it into my browser, see their website. And so you don't want it so that, hey, if you're emailing a client, you had a great conversation, they do that, and then it goes to their brokerage homepage and say, what? I was talking to Tom. Why am I going to ABC Brokerage's homepage? What's going on
yeah,
here, right? Something's up. You want that to be yours, right? You want to be, hey, talk to Tom. I type it in. There's Tom's homepage. Okay, awesome. I'm in the right place. I'm working with the right person. The other one too, we've heard, I shouldn't laugh, but I'm laughing because it's true. It's one of those sad but true type things. Is we know people who absolutely hate their brokerage. And it's nothing against this brokerage. It's just we know that some agents have certain setups that are better for some brokerages. And that's always the game to play, is say as an agent and as a brokerage is finding the corresponding participant who best complements you. And so we know terribly uncomplimentary situations that exist and people won't move because their email, right? And so maybe at one time it worked, but they say, hey, you know what? This email, I've been working for 20 years. All my clients know this email. I don't like the situation I'm in with my brokerage at all. They don't like working with me either, but I'm not leaving just for this, just
wow,
for this email
yeah,
address, right? And it's and obviously for anybody listening, they can doesn't take too much to realize that that's not a good situation for anyone. So the sooner you can own it, have your own domain, the easier it can be to avoid these types of situations. So, hopefully that's convinced people enough to at least pique their interest and say, okay, kind of what was that phrase from, it wasn't Inglorious Bastards, it was Django, where he's like, at first you have my curiosity, now you have so hopefully we have your attention now,
yeah,
not
yeah,
just your curiosity, but in any case. So let's get into it. So now got some attention, hopefully from you guys. Let's get right into the steps here. So the first one is just choosing the domain, right? Like
yeah.
actually going and picking it. So how do you think about picking a domain? I mean, you can have 1,001 things out there for a domain. What would you say are some good best practices?
Yeah, I mean, it's keep it simple is probably the easiest thing. I mean, when you're starting a business, when you're doing a lot of things on the web, you got to think about the end user that's going to be searching you or looking for you. And if you have a domain that is mortgages easy or easy mortgages, for example, that's really easy for people to understand, really easy for them to type. But if you're trying to do something where it's like Massimo and Tom's Mortgages Toronto, that's a little more challenging. You
Yeah.
probably don't want it more than, I don't know, 10, 12 letters if possible, something
Maybe
like that.
15
So
characters. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So keep it simple, avoid ampersands, and I don't even know if you can do underscores or anything, but like basically keep it simple, make it easy for people to search, easy for people to remember, and easy for people to spell. So
Yeah, spelling's a big one, right? Like, because you got to think about for some people, a lot of people still, and even for us, having conversations over the phone. And I'll pick on you a bit, Massimo here, but your name is Massimo Ianni Roberto, right? So if you
yeah,
choose that as your domain, let's say, yeah, just email me at info@massimoianniroberto.com. People would say, what? Say
yeah.
that
When
again. And now you're spelling it out. And
I've had
was that
so
an
many
I or is
clients
that?
I've had so many
Yeah.
clients and partners say, just change your freaking email to
Yeah.
Massimo at Blue Root because I
Yeah.
have it first initial, last name. And every time I spell it out to people, I go, I, A is in Apple, N is in Nancy,
Oh
N
no,
is in Nancy, and I just go
that's what
through
you
it. So
don't
yeah,
want.
you don't want
No.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so we've had a lot of trial by fire, as you guys can see. So that's one area to avoid. And then also we've also trial by fire. Even Blue Mortgage is tricky for people because there's actually no E in Blue Mortgage. It's
yeah.
Blumortgage. And so many people want to type in that E. And I don't even know who owns the Blue with an E domain. Maybe we should reach out and ask them for it. But
Yeah,
or if
probably.
anyone listening has that domain, we'd love to buy it off you. But
Mm,
it confuses people, right? They put it in, they don't know. So have it, easy to spell, something that's easy to remember. So I see some people do like really long acronyms, and those are okay, but those it's actually really hard to remember. Was it a TFTG, TFPG? Like people don't remember the letters, they remember the words. And the last thing I'd say too is always do the .ca.com. We used to, again, another trial by far. We used to have what, the
yeah,
.co,
yeah, yeah,
.co, and people would say .com? No, no. .co, .ca? No,
yeah.
no,
A
it's
lot of them
.co.
would
So
just put
yeah,
.com, and I wouldn't get the
yeah,
emails. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, bad
yeah.
idea.
So that's the first step. So pick the domain and maybe follow a couple of those guidelines. And so now you have what you think is the first one. And obviously also check if it exists, right? So a great way to
Yeah,
do that. This is before you even go to GoDaddy, which is the next step, actually buying the domain. But always check before you go Daddy, because what I find is, let's just say bluemortgage.com, I want to go get that. If I type that into GoDaddy and I see it's available, great. If I check a week later, it's like quadruples the price. Like it knows, hey, someone's searching, I'm gonna do it. So what's best actually is to type it into your browser first, see if you get a website or something associated. And then once you see that it's available, then and you're certain you want to buy it, that's when you go GoDaddy, one search, one hit, go and you're off to the races. So yeah, how does that work? I guess I kind of, I guess, spoiled it a little bit, but that next step of actually getting the domain, GoDaddy is the example I used. I guess there's some other ones out there like
yeah.
Namecheap. I don't know what else there is, but
Bluehost. Yeah, there. I mean,
yeah,
if you just type in domain providers, you can find it. But GoDaddy is kind of the
de
Microsoft of
facto. Yeah,
domains. Yeah, like they are
yeah.
the kingpin, and people probably know them from their weird logo of some guy with orange hair and kind of squiggly
Oh yeah,
lines
that,
and all that. It's like
yeah,
a little cartoon character, but
yeah.
yeah, they're kind of the de facto. And honestly, we've been using them for 10 plus years now. They're really good, very stable, very reasonably priced, and they have all kinds of add-on services. Like for example, if you buy a domain through GoDaddy, you can automatically get your mail hosting and your website hosting and things like that. So they make it very easy to get on the web very quickly, which
Mhm.
is important with this stuff. So yeah,
No, for sure. I think yeah, they're the one we use. We've used Namecheap before, but as the name suggests, it's cheaper usually.
yeah,
But it comes with a couple more hoops to jump through. And so, that's just I think Namecheap is a favorite for developers, right?
yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with jumping. Those hoops aren't big hoops, but if you're someone who's maybe not in that category of being okay with the jump through technical hoops, GoDaddy is probably a really good bet. You're not going to go wrong. So yeah, you talked about, I mean, so now you got the domain. What are the two things people usually do with a domain? Well, we've kind of alluded to already, but it's your website
Yeah.
and it's your email, typically. And what's kind of cool is they're actually completely unrelated in a sense, right? It's actually kind of cool how kind of the back end of the internet works, but there's a concept of a registry for a website and then a registry for emails. And so we'll get into each of those. So let's just say, for example, you did go Namecheap or you went GoDaddy and you decided not to use one of their out of the box solutions. And there's pros and cons to that, right? There's, very much like we're talking about the brokerage. You don't necessarily might want to be captive to GoDaddy, right? What if they quadruple their rates next year? You want to be able to take your domain, maybe put it elsewhere. So the more you can control each component of this, the more flexibility you're going to have. So let's start with the website. So you've gone out, you've said, okay, got my domain. Now I want to set up my website. There's services out there that host websites and that sort of thing. So how do you go about actually connecting the two? So it's like, okay, I got my domain. I'm hosting it on, Wix or WordPress or some of these other services out there that actually host websites. How do I say this website equals this domain? How do you kind of make that link?
Well, I would actually so I would actually push
Or
this
did I
back to you because
frame
yeah,
yeah,
because
frame this differently? Yeah.
no, no,
Okay,
no,
go ahead.
because I
Yeah.
I honestly do the mail stuff more. So maybe I'll tackle that
Okay.
one.
Sure.
I think you
Well,
could
go to the
actually
mail.
teach
Why
me
don't you
some
do the
stuff with
mail?
this one. Okay,
Sure.
yeah. So
Okay. You do the
the
yeah.
yeah, so
I'll
from
do
the
the other.
mail perspective,
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
it works is you have providers of email. So think of like Gmail, Outlook, Zoho Mail, Yahoo. I keep saying Yahoo. Anyways, Yahoo is one. They do provide email.
Count it. Yeah. I think they're
And
still big. Yeah.
yeah,
Ish.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, not RIP, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a flashback to Freddy. I don't know, episode
Oh
8
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyways, so you have providers that can actually send and receive emails, but technically those emails cannot be sent or received unless you do some setup with your domain. And so there are things called MX records that need to go
Okay.
into your domain in order for your domain to now know, okay, I'm going to push emails through Gmail, or I'm going to push emails through Outlook, etc. And so there's a bit of setup you have to do there, and there's all kinds of self-help guides. All of these guys, including GoDaddy, have
Mm.
phone calling lines and live chat and all of this to help. But the idea here is you have the provider that actually you type in like a subject line, a to, a from, you send the email, but in the back end, all of that is routing through your domain. And you need to set that up by giving your domain MX records that point to the provider.
Right.
And basically, once you do that, emails will automatically redirect into Gmail, for example, or Outlook, whatever provider you point the MX records through your DNS to.
Right.
So, yeah, that's basically email, and it's actually pretty neat. And you can,
It's actually pretty quick too. I think that's the other thing. It's
yeah,
like if you know what you're doing, it's probably 5 minutes. If you don't
yeah,
know what you're doing, it's maybe 30.
yeah.
Um, but it's not so crazy, right? I think that's the thing that we want to kind of bust, like go back to Mythbusters, or maybe they're still
My
they're
brother's
still
watching
going.
it
I
right
don't know.
now. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
they're still
no,
going.
okay.
They lost the two hosts, and now I think they're owned by Amazon. But
Okay. But okay, so
yeah,
the myth we want to bust is that this is tricky stuff. It's honestly it's copy and paste. You got to know where you're going.
yeah,
But once you copy and paste it once, it's good forever, right? And that's really it. And so, yeah,
yeah.
like
Really,
you're
all you're
saying, Meth.
doing is
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
sorry, finish your thought there. Yeah,
Well, no, I'm just going to kind of summarize, right? Is that
yeah,
all you're doing basically is okay, when I type an email, let's just use the example, at bestmortgage.ca. I hit send. Well, there's like this registry that says, okay, who owns the domain, right? So where am I sending this to, this bestmortgage.ca? And it finds it, right? Because you've registered with GoDaddy. GoDaddy has it in the registry. Oh, there's Apple's thumbs up. And then GoDaddy has it now, and it says, okay, now I have this. Now where do I send it to? And that's all you're doing, right? You're just telling GoDaddy that's hosting your domain to say, hey, if you get an email to this domain, send it to Gmail,
yeah,
send it to Outlook, send it. And then once Outlook gets it, then they do their step to say, okay, this is this email, this is this address. Okay, it's associated with Massimo and his user and bringing it through.
yeah,
So you're just making that one link, and it's just a copy and paste, right? It's not so crazy.
yeah. And like just to kind of put a bow on that copy paste, like honestly, the way you can think about it is like GoDaddy has, or all these tools have a front end that so they have a website you log into. And think of like an Excel file. They're going to make you add a new row in a list of rows, and it'll say, what MX record is this? And like Tom's saying, it's a copy paste. They ask you this little thing like, how many seconds does this MX record take to
Doesn't matter
publish or
that
something?
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's like you're copy pasting a row almost like in Excel. And then you typically have to add one or two rows for inbound and outbound, and then you're done. So you just got to know where to add that row, and you got to know
yeah.
where to copy paste, but it's super easy. Yeah.
Not too intimidating. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the good thing is a lot of these providers, again, like you might want to go with GoDaddy, is they have great help guides, right? And we can even maybe include some in the show notes of just how easy it is to where you go for this and where you can copy and paste. Right. And so honestly, you deferred the website one to me, but honestly, I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on this because it's actually very similar. Instead of these MX records you're talking about, Mass, you use what's called a record. So why they're called this, I actually don't know. MX is mail exchange. I know
Yeah.
that, which is kind of cool. I don't know. I have no
No, I
I
don't.
have no idea what it means. But it works exactly the same way. But instead of, let's say, we talked about these examples of Gmail and some of these different providers. instead of a mail provider, you have a website. And the website, you can kind of think of it like almost like a computer, right? It's a server actually, but it's kind of like your laptop. And our server I think is in Arizona or something like that. So there's literally a computer sitting in Arizona right now that has all of our files about our website and what needs to go on it. And again, all you're doing is pointing towards that. All you're doing is for GoDaddy is to say, hey, when someone types into their browser bluemortgage.ca, what's going to happen is that it's again going to send a request to GoDaddy. The browser now is saying, hey, GoDaddy, someone wants to know what's going on with this bluemortgage.ca domain. And then what GoDaddy is going to do is going to look in its A records. And it's going to say, okay, well, you're asking for that. I got to look for, and it's literally like an IP address, if people know what that is. And that IP address tells them exactly what computer in Arizona to go to. So GoDaddy goes, finds that computer, grabs all the information, brings it back, and puts it into your browser. So all of this domain stuff, really, at the end of the day, and actually setting it up, is really about linking stuff together, right? It's just saying to whoever, whether it's this GoDaddy provider or whatever it might be, hey, if someone wants to know what's going on with bluemortgage.ca, this is where you look. Hey, if someone's sending an email to bluemortgage.ca, this is where you send it. It's just all about linking these different components together because at the end of the day, that's really what it is, right? You just have these different components that you just want to make sure are working together. And that's what copy and pasting these records like Massimo described, that's what it's going to do for you. So website honestly is very similar to mail. Not really different at all.
No, honestly, I looked at the show notes and saw A records, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I guess you don't either.
I don't
And
know what it stands for. Yeah, I
yeah,
got to
yeah, yeah,
figure it out. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, I mean, I guess the summary here is, I mean, there's a bunch of points to take away, but one, don't be scared of this stuff. Some of those examples Tom talked about earlier, like people being held hostage, for lack of a better word, or in a situation they don't want to be in just because someone owns their domain. The thing we didn't talk about here is, and this does get a slightly more complex, but not really. You can actually like forward domains and port domains. So like if you have all your old emails on one email, there are ways to
Right.
push all those emails into a new one. So there are ways to get out of these kind of weird situations, but the idea here is don't be scared of this stuff. It's easy. These companies know it's not that hard and they provide really good support just to make it even less hard. Like GoDaddy wins awards every year for their customer service. So
Yeah.
um, it might sound scary, but it's not. Yeah.
No, it's not so scary. And for me, just talking about this stuff, I hope people listening to find this too. It's like it's kind of cool to know how the internet works, right? Like sometimes
Yeah.
you don't even think about it. You just type in this thing in your browser and something pops up and you say, cool. But to know that, okay, what's happening in the background is that domain, it's really just kind of like a license plate that has a map. It's basically a treasure map, right? That says, okay, go find this domain. And then the domain is hosted by something like GoDaddy or Namecheap. And then GoDaddy says, okay, well, you have to go look at this computer or this sort of thing, and then it all goes back. So it's just a series of steps, and that's kind of the cool thing about it. And all you're doing is you're just adding one of the steps, or you're linking, one of those two steps together. But I always find it pretty cool when you kind of peel back the layers and understand it. And the thing about understanding it too is that once you do understand it, we find for a lot of people who we kind of explain this stuff to, they go, well, actually, no, that isn't so bad. And that is kind of cool. And then next time you're a lot more equipped, right? So the more you can understand this kind of stuff too, the better you're going to be. If you ever have to change something or do one of those migrations, like Massimo said, you don't have to just follow a step-by-step guide. It's kind of like, back in the day when you used to just print out MapQuest, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then you would miss a wrong turn and you'd be lost, right? Versus
Yeah.
knowing, hey, I need to get north, or I need to get on the 401. That's for all the people in Ontario. Or I need to get, I'm trying to think of a Vancouver example, but I can't. But point B is the more you can understand these types of things, get to the bottom of it, the better equipped you'll be to tackle it and make sure that you have this thing perfectly dialed in for you and your business. Well, hopefully that was useful. We went a little bit into the technical deep end, but like I said, I think it is worthwhile. I think it's something that
Yeah.
is valuable. I was saying to Mass before the episode, I used to do a lot of Google Ads podcasts, and they went very, very technical, and I found it very useful. So hopefully this is useful. Love to get your feedback in the comments section. But as always, thanks for your time and attention, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.